Welcome to Future Customer Value, where global thought leaders share their career-defining moments.
Marie Lunney, thank you so much for being on the show today. Super excited to have you on for our audience. You have a really interesting perspective that I'm pumped to dive into. So thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Cool. Well, for folks who aren't familiar with Marie and her amazing work in the world of digital customer success, I want to tee up her story because it's really fascinating. So Marie started off her career at a dyslexia therapy startup in North Carolina back in the day. And that quickly led her to realize that she wants to be a CSM. I think you met somebody at WalkMe when you were in North Carolina and realized that was a good fit for you. So I started at CS at WalkMe, and I was really, really curious to hear about your story here because you moved from CS to marketing, and along the way had this amazing realization about digital CS, which we'll dive into, and that formed the rest of your career. But WalkMe is a really critical component of Marie's journey. And that ultimately led her to Chili Piper, where WalkMe was, or Chili Piper was a customer of WalkMe. And Gemma, who is a mutual friend of both of ours, used to run CS there. So that led you to Chili Piper, running CS initiatives there. And finally, Marie is the founder of an incredible community called DCS Connect Digital Customer Success. And we'll hear a lot about that through her journey over the past few experiences that led her to start this community and really dive into this emerging niche in the world of post sales. So thanks so much for being on again, and it's excited to dive in here.
Yeah, likewise. You did a great job. Really wrapping up my entire career.
That's my job, Marie. That's my job.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'd love to kick it off with a story from you that will set the stage for the rest of our conversation. And that is, what was the aha moment for you personally at WalkMe that led you into the world of digital customer success?
Yeah. So I think I've always been jealous of people who know what they want to do in their careers, the doctors, the lawyers, and such. And when I look at my career, the story that you just gave, I never would have been able to paint that picture and see what doors it would have led to. But now looking back, it all makes sense. So at that small startup, it really was identifying my love for building relationships and also process improvements. So keep those in mind as you travel along my journey with me. And I wanted to build relationships a lot deeper, and that led to customer success and being a CSM. Being a CSM was amazing, but after owning a really complicated book of business for about a year and a half, I felt like I knew how to put out every fire, and I was hungry to learn more. And the opportunity that presented itself was to run our go-to-market marketing function for our SMB division at WalkMe. I studied marketing in school, but had never really done it beyond, some internship work. And I said, why not? Why not take this opportunity to learn again? So I'll fast forward through my marketing experience, but really the marketing experience taught me a whole lot in how to market to customers, use these different marketing channels and marketing technology to speak with customers and prospects as well. And through a series of building 0 to 1 programs in marketing, the next 0 to 1 program that came knocking on my door at WalkMe was to own post-sale product marketing. And really the challenge there was we need to drive onboarding, adoption, retention, and expansion with our customers, but we need to do it through marketing channels. We need to do it a little bit more scalable. We need to support our CSMs and what they're already doing. Marie, can you help us? And this was the aha moment of, oh my gosh, yes, I get to work really closely with CS again. I get to work with customers again, which I really missed. But I get to use my knowledge and channels from my marketing experience to execute on this. And I think this was before DCS, digital customer success, was even a term. And I was building out customer journeys and building out one-to-many programs. And I loved what I was doing. And then another knock at the door came from Gemma, who was one of my customers when I was a CSM 3 years prior, saying, hey, I'm moving over to Chili Piper. I'm hiring for these 2 roles. Let me know if you know anyone who might be a good fit. And then the next call, she asked me if I was interested. And I said, oh, didn't see that coming, but I actually am. I'm really interested in this digital customer success role, which only added another component to something that I knew I loved and wanted to get deeper into, which was I had the CS, I had the marketing. I wanted to get deeper into operations and data. And so that married everything under this digital customer success umbrella. And I started to build that out then at Chili Piper in a much more programmatic and deeper, expansive way, which was really fun.
Wow. It's an incredible story. And I've been seeing this all over LinkedIn where thought leaders are talking about how marketing plays such a critical role in the post-sales world. And it's not just a lead gen, top of funnel play, it's across the board, right? The entire value chain requires marketing because it's education at the end of the day. So I think it's really fascinating that you have both the lens of the customer success, happiness, revenue side of things, as well as the how do you get people to act and call to actions, right? I think those are both really critical components. And probably played into your world with DCS and what are the right nudges or journeys or triggers at each stage of that journey to get someone to act or to do something or to engage. So really, really fascinating. I want to ask you another question here, specifically around your time at Chili Piper, which is, it seems that coincided with digital customer success becoming a much more talked about part of the customer success play and motions. But something you mentioned in our pre-call was really interesting is DCS was not just, it started off as a segment and in a particular way to engage customers, but it became a strategy. It became a way to embed into any motion, no matter what your tier or segmentation. And so I'm really curious, I'm sure our audience would love to hear more about this. Can you talk about that? What led to that segment to strategy transition, and ultimately how is DCS leveraged in every single account at Chili Piper?
Yeah. So I think it really depends on need. And I actually don't think that there's a wrong way to go to market with your DCS strategy, whether that is by segment or by strategy. But I think the long-term vision should always be that it's segment agnostic and it's built and available for all segments. So for Chili Piper, I was actually hired to treat it as a segment. I was hired to own our SMB customers and our freemium trial to paid customers. And quickly that we kind of looked at what the business needs were, which was building out a CS team from 3 people to, I think it was 39 people when I left over a 2-year period. And with that comes a huge need for support in CS operations and CS enablement. So we decided that I would own those functions, so enablement and operations, as well as direct customer programs. And I think the benefit of that, there's pros and cons. So the benefit of it was that we could really support our CSMs to be more efficient. We could align our internal enablement with our external enablement. And ultimately, I think our customers had better experiences overall, and our revenue metrics benefited overall. I think the downside of it was being such a small team, a team of 1 and then growing to a team of 5. We had to split ourselves up to support all of those functions, versus if I was just focused on DCS as a segment, I probably could have gone a lot farther within that segment. But I would argue it wouldn't have had the revenue implications in a positive way that we were able to make by making it a strategy. So yeah, I think out of that experience as well, there was lessons learned of, I think, with treating it especially as, actually, I think I would go with if this was a segment or strategy segment agnostic. The huge lesson learned was lead with value and not risk mitigation, which I think is a common easy pitfall. CS as a function, we've all heard it and talked about it and lived it, that it's a firefighting mission, and we're trying to put out the risk here and there. And it's very alluring and easy to get into that same kind of thought pattern with DCS and say, how can we use digital motions to risk mitigate? Which I think there is a lot that you can do, but it's not the first thing that you should do. And then there's also thinking about, especially DCS as a strategy for all segments. How can you use digital-led motions versus digital-only motions? So DCS doesn't have to be. I think that's where you can start to think about it. Of, maybe for the SMB it's digital only, but for your enterprise customers, you're leading with digital touches that are then supplemented with the CSM.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to be my next question is if you could give us an example of how the CSM plus digital motion were constructively driving more value for the customer and not being a burden or getting in the way. So what is a moment where you found that the two harmoniously combined to create outsized value for an enterprise customer?
Yeah, so at Chili Piper, we did really focus on using DCS to drive retention through risk mitigation. So if I was going to do it over again, which I am doing it over again, you can learn from my learnings and lead with value. And an example of this, of using kind of a digital-led motion, where a CSM is still involved, is you can have your systems identify a risk trigger. Maybe that is a sharp decline in usage, and you can send an email automatically on behalf of the CSM saying, hey, I noticed that this metric has gone down. For example, your number of bookings have significantly gone down compared to your average. It might be because, this thing in your setup got turned off. Here's a guide on how to fix it. Also, you can click this link and book a call with me if you need more help. So that's all very digital led. The CSM has not touched this customer. They don't even maybe know that this risk trigger, they of course should be notified that this risk has gone off, but maybe they haven't looked at their dashboard yet. So this is all running without the CSM. And the next action could be, okay, that customer opens the email and chooses to resolve the problem using the guide. And then we can see again through the product metrics that that touch point worked and there was no human involvement needed. They could open up the email and choose to book a call with the CSM, and that we can also then track. So then the CSM is involved. But again, I would say that's still removing, it's still making the CSM more efficient by not having to identify the risk and send this email manually. And then the third option is that they don't open the email and we still see that their usage has totally dropped. And that's when it goes into a manual risk for the CSM to own and chase. So it's a great example of how we did that at Chili Piper with one of the risk triggers. And, we were able, at least for one of the metrics, we saw about, I think it was it was over 6,000 ARR reactivated from that digital led touch point.
Oh, wow.
But if you look at the rest of that, it was only 8% reactivation. So of the cohort of customers who were inactive in a specific product, we were only able to reactivate 8% with a digital led motion. So that's where I go back to saying lead with value and not risk mitigation, because if you're, it's just using different tools to solve different problems. A DCS motion and channels are really, really powerful at leading the horse to water and reinforcing good behavior and teaching, this is how you get the most out of your experience. It can be useful to take some initial steps for risk mitigation, like I just mentioned. But ultimately, if someone's already checked out, your best bet is to smile and dial and get them on the phone and use a CSM to resolve that risk. And the caveat here is, I think this is also the why I say lead with value, because when you're starting a DCS motion, oftentimes you're getting this data for the first time. So you identify, let's say, this cohort of customers who are inactive on a specific feature or product. You're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do to reactivate them? And you go through these digital lead motions to reactivate them versus, okay, identify them with data, throw some humans at them, and then let's put in systems with a digital lead motion for people who maybe reach that point, or hopefully actually you're building a system so that they don't ever reach that point. You catch the decline early and you engage them early. That's where DCS can be really powerful versus the people who have already been, inactive for who knows how long.
Right. And do you, through those channels, did you have a way to understand the why? So why is someone checked out? Why are they not leveraging it so much? Was that something that the DCS channels could handle, or was that the smile and dial approach where, okay, here's the insight, we need to do something about it. Let's figure out, give them a call and understand what's going on. So can you talk a bit about where that comes from?
I think it really depends on the metric that you're looking at. So an example is if you see a steady decline in usage, let's say logins, and this is going to vary totally on product as well. Like you might have a product that is very much set it and forget it, but maybe the metrics that you're looking at then is not logins because they've already done the setup, but it's maybe how many API calls are run. As long as those APIs are running, they're getting value and things are good and everyone should be happy. Versus if you are dependent on logins and you see a steady decline in logins, that's a little bit harder to decipher of okay, are they not seeing value? Are they getting sucked into other projects that they're working on in their own businesses? So I think if it's a little bit more of a technical metric, the why is often a technical reason that you can solve with a DCS approach. If it's a little bit more of a soft metric or, something that's non-technical, then the why could be a number of things. And that is more difficult to capture with DCS. But you can then use things like, engagement type surveys to capture that, or even better, send emails that remind them of their why to begin with, and show them, the ROI that they could get or that they are getting, to get them re-engaged.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really, really fascinating. I think the approach of sending the right signals to the CSMs to help them lead the customer to value, and ultimately the CSM needs to know what the customer value is, right, before that can be effective. So I think there's a lot there, and that leads us to the third question here, and I want to unpack that start with value piece more. Can you bring that to life for us, starting with value in two scenarios, one from a retention standpoint and one from an expansion standpoint? So if you're running a CS team where DCS is a key component of the strategy, how does that leading with value help keep that customer and then grow that customer?
Yeah. So you had mentioned actually, the CSM first has to know what they care about. Why did they purchase? What are they hoping to, do with your tool? So So oftentimes in a traditional format, a CSM is capturing that on the welcome call, or maybe sales is capturing that and handing it off to the CSM team if you have good handoff, which is, a challenge that most of us have faced. But you can do that with DCS as well. So is that something that's captured in the sales process and logged, within your systems? And then maybe you can surface it to your customers and have them verify, hey, this is what we know is your use case. And you can go so far with this. I'm kind of geeking out in my brain right now of like, that's where the PLG motion comes in play. You can have really slick onboarding within your product that already customizes your, onboarding experience based off of the use case that you told the salesperson, 2 weeks ago. So there's kind of the crawl, walk, run approach here of what you can do with DCS. That's very much the run. But it starts with capturing that. Let me just say that. It starts with capturing, what do you want to do with our tool? What do you want to do with our product? What's the business outcome you're hoping to achieve? Depending on your product, then hopefully you can map that to KPIs and metrics, and also then map that to product metrics that you're able to track. So you don't have to rely on your customer to tell you, how has this affected your sales rates, for example, your close rates? And you lead them through onboarding for their use case. So you customize their onboarding per their use case. And then you show them how to measure the effectiveness, or even better, show them the ROI of your product to achieving that value. And you lead them to additional benefits, so advanced features that can help them with their use case, or advanced products for cross-sell opportunities. All of this is done, mainly through email as a channel, or your product as a channel. And I also think there's a lot of opportunity in terms of inbound channels. So your customer is coming to you to learn more proactively. And can that live in a customer dashboard that kind of shows them their customer journey and what they should do next? Can that live in your customer knowledge base? And your knowledge base is customized based off of their product or use case, or their user role. Can you customize your university, again, to show them the things that they care about? So it's a lot of customization when it comes down to it, both when you reach out to the customer as well as when they interact with you. So all of that ultimately is driving value, leading them to adopt and see value in your product, and then showing them the opportunities of expansion and how it maps back to their ultimate business goals.
Got it. Yeah, that discovery piece is really critical from the get-go, right? And having that, ideally the salesperson map that out before the handoff, and then having the CS team build off of it. I think I've been hearing that across the board is the better discovery you have, the more you can lead that horse to value and get them to engage through all the different channels you mentioned, digital and human touch. So that's great to hear. All right, well, we're going to take a different path here now and go down a audience favorite of the show, which is the rapid fire questions. So the goal of this is I'm gonna ask you a question, and I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind, Marie, 1 or 2 words each. And you have a unique angle on this given your DCS lens, so I think you'll have some great responses.
Okay.
Here we go.
I got my water ready.
You got hydrated. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Start with the first one. What is the best metric of success for CS?
Okay, I'm going to do digital CS. Customer retention cost.
Oh, not heard that one before. It's going to be a lot of new ones. What's the worst metric of success for DCS?
Customer lifetime value in isolation. So only looking at CLV, not comparing it to CAC or anything else.
Got it. Ratios are important.
Mm.
What is the most underrated part of digital customer success?
Clean data.
Clean data. What about the most overrated part of DCS?
Cleaning data.
What is the current state of DCS?
Discovery and evolution.
All right. What is the future state of DCS?
I don't know if I have a one-word answer to this, but it's going to be the staple customer success experience.
Ready. What's the best CS book or podcast?
I'm biased, but I love the Digital Customer Success podcast that my friend Alex runs.
Oh, awesome. Love it. And I feel like this one's a layup. I might have to answer this one for you, but the best community for CS leaders. I'm just going to say it. Check out DCS DCS Connect, I should say. I will post that in the link here, but anything else you'd want to add?
No, I mean, I love DCS Connect. I'm also a big believer and involved in CS Angel, which is a
retweet.
Retweet. So go check them out as well. They're doing amazing things for people like Foresight and other companies.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we kind of touched on this, but entering the last few questions here for you, Marie. The whole point of this show is to talk about trends that are shaping customer success. We've talked a lot about DCS, but what I'd be really curious to hear is if you could make one prediction about the future of customer success as a whole. Feel free to include how DCS plays into it. What would it be? Where are we going as an industry?
Yeah, so I think DCS is going to be the staple. It's going to be when you sign up for a software that is your customer success experience, and you get a CSM through professional services or as a premier tier to buy into. I could also see it being, CSMs are really focused on the expansion play. They're focused on that consultative selling and really being a business partner in your strategy. And maybe it's the same as a CSM, or maybe it's even a different role is focused on that human approach to risk.
I love it. It is absolutely something I'm seeing come up in many conversations, is how do we start to meld together the digital and human approaches into one that adds more value to the customer ultimately. So it's a great answer. And then finally, is there anything you'd like to plug with the audience? Is DCS Connect hosting any cool events coming up, any newsletters or content you're producing? Floor is yours for any PSA.
DCS Connect is my evolving child, love child. And I'm constantly asking for community feedback and implementing that feedback. So we've set up monthly connections. So you get connected with assigned another member each month to have some coffee chats with. And we've also done monthly show and tells where we have a member featuring a topic or a strategy or a question or a challenge that they're working through in digital customer success, so we can all learn and workshop on that together. So it's a beyond just Slack posts. So definitely encourage everyone, if you're interested in digital customer success, to come check it out.
Great. Well, we will wrap it there. Marie, thank you so much for your time talking about your experiences across continents, across companies, and really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Sagar.